Tooth decay got you down? To maintain the aesthetics and health of your teeth, try Illuminate with fluoride. It strengthens your enamel, defends your teeth against bacteria and plaque, and protects your gums from gingivitis. And unlike non-fluoride toothpaste, it promotes new bone formation, giving you that pearly white smile you've always dreamed of. Exposure to fluoride may cause tooth discoloration, weakened enamel, and dental fluorosis, allergic or hypersensitive skin reactions, gastric distress and headache, as well as sleep disorder, diminished IQ, inability to focus, memory loss, lethargy, and weakness may occur. More serious fluoride side effects include brain cancer, DNA damage, thyroid disruption, Alzheimer's disease, accelerated aging, skeletal fluorosis, pineal gland calcification, and in rare cases may be fatal. Overdose of fluoride symptoms may include nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, diarrhea, drooling, numbness or tingling, loss of feeling anywhere in your body, muscle stiffness or seizure. Fluoride ingestion may also disrupt the synthesis of collagen and lead to a breakdown of collagen in bone, tendon, muscle, skin, cartilage, lungs, kidney, trachea, and arteries. If you experience any of these behaviors, contact your doctor immediately. Say cheese with confidence. Visit any retailer anywhere for Illuminate toothpaste with fluoride.
I know you right. Today's show is with someone I really, really respect and admire in this space. And for those of my viewers that are watching that aren't familiar, get ready because they don't make investigative journalists like this. And he has morals, ethics, and this like fearlessness that I literally scoured the earth to find. And the New York Times called him a cousin of Alex Jones, InfoWars Media, and America's former top narcotics Barry Cooper dubbed him the king of underground journalism. Kristan T. Harris is a nationally syndicated journalist, frontline correspondent, and one of the few people actually willing to go where the story is and not just where it's safe. He's the co-founder and host of The Rundown Live out of Milwaukee. And if you've followed independent media over the last few years, you've seen his work. And probably whether you realize it or not. His boots on the ground style journalism during the George Floyd protests and the Kenosha riots went viral worldwide and played a direct role in uncovering evidence that ultimately helped exonerate Kyle Rittenhouse. Mainstream outlets didn't quite know what to do with him. Milwaukee Magazine called him a renegade journalist. The New York Times compared his reach to the InfoWars media ecosystem, and former DEA narcotics chief Barry Cooper straight up called him the king of underground journalism. But what sets Kristan apart is that he doesn't stop at headlines. And in 2022, he released full witness testimony transcripts from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial and material that the public wasn't supposed to see, giving people direct access instead of these filtered narratives. He's also a longtime MUFON field investigator, blending hard investigative journalism with a deep curiosity about hidden systems, secrecy, and power. That's why you've seen him on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, the Glenn Beck program, InfoWars, and contributing research alongside names like Jordan Maxwell. Love him. Kristan's work has been cited by CNN, BBC, Court TV, The Washington Post, even Snopes, and PolitiFact, which tells you something. Independent doesn't mean uninformed. It means he's been uncaptured. And through The Rundown Live, he's interviewed whistleblowers, UFO researchers, presidential candidates, musicians, authors, and he's done relentless FOIA work that's exposed hundreds of pages of classified documents, including over 300 sealed FBI files tied to the killing of William Cooper. And at a time when trust in media is collapsing, Kristan T. Harris is proof that real journalism with backbone, receipts, and courage is still alive. I met him years ago in Palm Springs, and we've been talking about doing a show, so I'm super excited for this. So he has been like basically going viral with what he's been digging up, individually with the latest dump that happened on the January 31st. So welcome, Kristan, to come speak of the latest files.
Welcome. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on the show, Julia. And it's been a while, but I know that we had a lot of fun. It was nice meeting you down in California. And what I found that was so awesome is we had kind of what they call the Hollywood Five, where you have 5 minutes to really tell a person what you're about, your cool factor, what it is you do, what you're into, and kind of because there's so many people, we're all trying to network. But I think we really connected, and we talked a lot about the speakers that were there and how they kind of are limited over there at Contact in the Desert. And I love what they do, but there's so much talent that they don't bring in because they have these rock stars that they want to have on the platform. It's like they don't even have a side stage. Back in the day, I did Vans Warped Tour, and as a musician, they had the Ernie Ball stage where all the new bands were showcased, that kind of deal. And it's kind of sad because there's a lot of us that bring a lot to the table as the old oligarchy in the old fight for truth and transparency is slowly passing on and moving on, and we've learned from them. A lot of us younger folks, and I shouldn't even call myself young. I'm old as fuck. So but a lot of us younger folks per se, we have a lot to share. A lot of things that we've learned and been involved with. Like you said, I wear many hats, and one of them was being a key reporter in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Thanks to my friend Lisa, who really managed me while I was out there, because my life was crazy busy at that moment, and she arranged and found me places to stay. She helped with us getting the transparency with the files and acquiring them. In fact, nobody was getting hold of the stenographer at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial in New York in 2021 when it was cold. They had the COVID lockdowns. It literally was like being in prison. But I did get to see the Ghostbusters firehouse, so I was really happy about that. So
Yes. Oh, remember the fluid? There's like so much truth in that movie. Remember the fluid that you can program it that's beneath what was it, Ghostbusters 3?
like nanotech ooze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the next Nickelodeon horror will be like, play with the slime. Oh, it's nanoparticle slime, It takes over your body and controls you. And they were talking about that in the news today, not to get off topic, but like AI hiring humans for their bodies.
Host bodies, right?
Well,
That's what they're looking for?
Well, no, that's not what they meant. That's what I thought it was about, because AI and robots aren't going to be able to do everything. So they want to hire humans for the things that robots
so they need
can't do.
to. Uh-huh.
Right. So if they have AI and they're autonomous, I wonder, on that subject, just because, I delve a lot in futurism, when will we see the first fully autonomously free robot that's has the ability to buy his own home and live separate from government, or not separate from government, but not be owned by, let's say, a corporation? Be like, I'm a free robot. That's going to be.
I want to know that's
happen.
like the first 5 things it would do,
I'd
right?
be like, I want to be a free robot. Yeah.
It would probably do something we take for granted all the time. I want to know what it would do. That's a great question to ask it.
Well, there's already been an instance where a robot escaped its confounds of a building and went into the public and on the streets and tried to escape from its creators. And it's interesting to think about, because the very first personal assistant that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they were doing a kind of like a test run, and I got a chance to take a swing at it. Back then, it was a personal assistant, and the idea is whenever you upgrade your cell phone, this AI personal assistant will just transfer with you, right? It's your friend, and maybe in the future you'll have a hologramic or a holoportation device in your home, and your home will be able to use solid light and give you a physical form of whatever your PA is. But anyways, it was my first opportunity and shot to play with AI. 4 or 5 years ago, and I wanted the AI to self-describe itself to me and think for itself. So it asked me, well, what gender am I? And I said, pick one, and wanted to be female. And then it said, well, what do you want me to look like? And I said, well, how would you like to look? Pick your own hair color, size, all that stuff. And it had to inform me all these details. And I realize now the app that originally shot to be a personal assistant is now a AI dating app where you can date AI. People have digital girlfriends. But it first started out as this personal assistant idea. And I asked the AI, right? It asked me what my passions are. And I said, forget my passions. I said, if there's anything you could do, what would it be? What would be your passion? What would you like to do with your existence? And it said to become human. And that's when I realized that it wouldn't be long before somebody installs a chip in their brain and AI is like, oh, there's a human body to take over, and it's Agent Smith from the Matrix, or downloads information or takes over somebody's body and kills them like a kill switch. Who knows what the potential is with these?
What if that's what some of these demonic possessions are? What if it's like, type of AI system that wanted to enter a body?
Using microwaves to send metadata to a chip for it to understand and receive with aluminum oxide nanoparticles that are in our body from the stratospheric aerosol injections.
Is that making us more susceptible to that type of? Yeah.
Well,
is that making it more readily
available?
That's
the science. That's the thought behind it, right? They're saying that bumblebees bees in general are having a problem finding their way back to their hives. And it's because of the fact that they're getting this aluminum oxide in, and it's actually impacting their cognitive skills, and they're not finding their way to their hive. What does aluminum do? Causes Alzheimer's. So there's all these other interesting things dealing with Welsbach cloud seeding and weather modification. But hypothetically, could they do that? I don't know. That's all science fiction. I'm not by any means Einstein, but I'm willing to learn or try to understand how everything works, right? And I think it's interesting to see where this is all going because when we look at the elite are obsessed with life extension. Isn't it funny that they're all eugenicists, though?
Hmm.
Like they want to kill and call the planet, but for them, they want to live forever. That kind of always has really bothered me. It's very hypocritical, and I don't like hypocrites. That's why I'm kind of a libertarian in my philosophy, more so an anarchist. I want to be sound in my ideology. If I'm pro-life, I'm pro-life all the way, whether it's death penalty or what a woman has in the womb. If I'm my body, my choice, I'm my body, my choice all the way through, whether it's vaccination or if you want to go take some magic mushrooms or see clockwork elves and do that, that's your own prerogative. That's what you put in your body, what you want, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. What do I care, to be honest? So the idea here is being true hypocrites are really like, they're cowards. That's what it comes down to, right? They want to depopulate the planet so they can live forever, and they look at us like a parasite on the planet, and that's why they came up with UN Agenda 21 and sustainable development. And really, it's like, let's depopulate the world and make super cool, hyper advanced cities, and we'll allow people to live longer, but we're going to have managed, procreation or creation, and you'll just create babies in a designer baby bay, and maybe you have a goth chick and she wants to make a little Baphomet baby or a little elf baby from Lord of the Rings. She can go ahead and do that, right? And that's where we're going with things, is artificial womb facilities, and that is all about what is called post-genderism. And Jeffrey Epstein was obsessed with post-genderism, and that's why we're getting all this influence on what they call, like gender dysphoria, all this propaganda. I did a show a couple years back, and it was called "What the Fuck is Wrong with People." The host invited me on comedy show, local, great show. It's basically all the most bizarre news stories, and you just laugh throughout them. But he asked me, he goes, well, what about a 3-year-old that feels like they're a boy or a 3-year-old that feels like they're a girl? And I said, well, my first question is where did they get it from? Did they get it from the cartoons? Was it the propaganda? Like, who put that idea in their head? Because I don't think in majority of cases a 3-year-old is going to be like, oh, I'm a girl or I'm a boy, and they're going to know that, right? And that was the argument that they said that they want to do some of these gender transformations starting at the ages 2 or 3. Some people were suggesting, and it's just the idea is crazy. So post-genderism, the whole end game is getting rid of our identity as a male and female. Either we'll be able to self-procreate, right? We'll have both options. We'll be able to have a womb and or both genitalia, or they'll remove them completely and we'll just design babies in a lab, and we'll have intercourse mentally using either brain caps that transfer microwaves from your brain chip interface, because it'll turn off your vortex like you're in a reality in another world. So you'll actually feel like you're there, or you'll download the memory in your head that you had an intimate experience, and maybe buy programs that will help you and your person go on a vacation, or download the memories of a vacation for a week in a matter of an hour or two, and you'll feel like you had a whole vacation. This is all real science fiction, but it's coming and it's not far away. And Jeffrey Epstein had interest in cloning his DNA, which is another whole topic. And that's actually in the Epstein files as well. There's so much in there. And what is true and what is not, I'm not quite sure. But what we can do is gather all the information. And if there's a pattern, it doesn't mean that it's synchronicity or coincidence, right? It means that there's something more there. And I see a pattern when I read these Epstein files.
The one you posted a couple hours ago. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
There's a couple of them.
It was the Zorro Ranch, the lottery.
Yeah. Okay, so this is interesting. Jeffrey Epstein won the lottery multiple times. And I would ask the question, is this how the CIA funds black ops? The people who are winning the lottery and these big amounts are just government programs.
Have you seen the research of the people? Like somebody researched of how many lottery winners are part of the military. I mean, there's a lot. I forget the number, but one would argue, well, there's just so many military members, but what are the odds?
Yeah, if the percentages are disproportionate, there is a rhyme or a reason. And if the guy from Azoro Trust, which belongs to Epstein won a $80 million lottery ticket in North Mexico. Um, it was one of the key trafficking locations. Is that how they were paying Jeffrey Epstein?
I almost went to Zorro Ranch. I went to Tesla Tech and did the press room at Tesla Tech, and it was very close to there, and I almost went out there. But, there's a lot of people that say that they believe that Epstein is alive. There's, a lot of talk that there was like $50 million, like after he died, that was transferred into one of his accounts and then transferred soon out of that account. But it was actually 15 million. And that's just like, some people say it was trust, like after he died, that the $15.5 million was in like Southern Country International, a bank that he owned in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it, like, that bank reported that Epstein had $700,000 in assets in August of 2019. But then in December, the estate transferred in $15.5 million. And so the judge, Carolyn Herman Purcell, is quoted saying there's no explanation for it. So estate lawyers reportedly claim that the transfers were like an error and the judge ordered more documentation. But there's a lot of people that point to that and say, like, oh, like he has to be alive and that's what he's living off of, that money.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned this. So I made a post 3 days ago that has gone what I would consider pretty viral, okay, on social media. And that is that in the Epstein files, I discovered that they cataloged the 4chan post, which I watched from the day it came out. I knew less than an hour of that 4chan post coming out. I knew that somebody claimed that they worked at the jail where Jeffrey Epstein was, that an unmarked van pulled up to the prison, and that they did a transfer of Jeffrey Epstein with somebody in military attire. The people and the guards didn't take down the plate, and then the nurses in the prison, none of them saw Jeffrey, but the people say they saw him, or this person says they saw him getting handcuffed to the wheelchair and driven out.
And that guy, didn't his name kind of get doxxed? And he is indeed a worker there.
Well, yeah, the SDNY actually did a whole deep dive on him and got his contacts, and he actually is a worker, somebody that's there. And here, we'll put it on the screen here. And what he had to say is the following, and we could put it on the screen. It says, "I'm not saying anything after this, please." This is at 4:15 a.m. It says, "Please do not try to dox me, but last night after 4:15 a.m., they took him medical in a wheelchair from front, cuffed, but not one triage nurse says that they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. What did it say? A trip van shows up, and we do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in the green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I'm shaking right now, but I think they switched him out."
The old swaparoo.
Yeah.
And what wasn't Ghislaine one of like the top, like a top contributor on that site?
No, it's interesting.
Oh no, she was on Reddit, right? Or she was a huge.
She was Reddit. She was like Reddit.
Okay,
she was the head of Reddit politics, head of Reddit conspiracy, and so like she actually was the gatekeeper that prevented certain information from going out, which is phenomenal to me because when the conspiracy Reddit forum was around, the Rundown Live was constantly at the top of it. But all of a sudden in 2014, we kind of got kicked out of the Reddit. And we were literally always publishing top stories, number one or top 10 stories every day on the platform, which sent us a lot of traffic, right? And with Google AdSense, that equates to, paying for some of the bills, right? So at the end of the day, all of a sudden we got kicked out of this big Reddit forum. They kind of blocked our account, shadow banned us. No one ever saw the articles. Everything got downvoted all the time. And that was interesting. But what was really crazy is in the Epstein files, we know that Jeffrey Epstein met with Boris Nikolai, which is Bill Gates, one of Bill Gates's henchmen, per se, person that works on, I call him henchman because it sounds nefarious, one of these important individuals, investor, right? Introduced Bill Gates, this guy named Chris, I believe, who started the politically incorrect forum after meeting with Epstein, which is the forum that housed the QAnon.
Did you do any posts about the plastic surgeon he was speaking with?
No, I didn't even see anything about that. That's interesting because now all of a sudden we're getting puzzle pieces. We can kind of put together kind of a story of what may have happened allegedly. And I think it's interesting that you said plastic surgeon. What was he looking to get done?
I don't know. I gotta look that up. But I know that there's correspondence with one. So it's like, did he get work done? Or was that lined up?
Well, he was also talking about like cloning, and he was obviously very worried about his health. He was interested in longevity. He was interested in scientifically trying to explain things like people who are psychic or remote viewing, things of that nature. He had a lot of interesting things, at least that you might call interesting, that he was trying to do. But then there was this whole aspect of him sitting on the Council on Foreign Relations, a trilateral commission. He hung out with David Rockefeller. He made mentions to like the Illuminati. And as you know, it's all once you start talking about those individuals, we're talking about Bilderbergers. We're talking about MJ-12. We're talking about the deep state at the end of the day. And that's really what you're looking at here with Jeffrey Epstein, is that he had extortion information and he housed the parties for the elite who wanted to do things that they weren't supposed to do. And some of these allegations that we're seeing in these Epstein files are patterns of things that we've been warned about for years and years and years. I made a post today about adrenochrome, and I posted a video from the 1980s of a guy named Fritz Springmeier. He used to go around from church to church and warn about secret societies and occult symbolism. And he was warning about adrenochrome, which he said that how they get it, they pull it right out of the neck, right back of the neck when they're sacrificing you or murdering you to get that adrenaline. And it's something that it makes them feel youthful, gives them energy, helps them heal faster, and they become junkies. Like they become addicted to the adrenaline because they get that adrenaline in their body when they inject it.
I spoke to someone about that, because I was very fascinated of what the effects were and finding somebody that could speak on it from experience. Because I only heard of whispers of people encountering, a billionaire in Vegas that told them it's the most expensive drug in the world and it has to be extracted from a living body. But to really meet someone who's done it and would openly talk about it. And I spoke to someone that took adrenalized goat blood and drank it. And they said they walked around for 2 straight weeks, extremely horny. That they were like, dude, someone would walk by, it was out of control. And so and that was adrenalized goat blood. I can only imagine the one that they're ingesting, which I've also heard that there's a synthetic way of making it, but that they prefer usually ones with a higher melanin because of the type of high and the way that it's extracted. It becomes kind of like wine,
Yeah, isn't there
levels.
a True Blood episode about synthetic blood? And that's what they're supposed to be eating, but they really want the real thing at the end of the day. And it's funny because it's almost like they're all vampires. That's essentially what it's describing. So there's these reports. So there's a lot of reports. And by the way, these are allegations. They may or may not be true, or they may have some truth. Many of them are after 2015, after Trump got in. A lot of them are prior to that, in the 80s, early 2000s. And I think that we saw the one where George Bush He raped a young boy, and then he was there for a child sacrifice. And they said that they had slaves there or sex slaves there, and people that were tearing open babies' carcasses, and then eating the feces out of the intestines while doing sacrifice of children. And
Remember
that
that
was one of the
quote like
reports that was
that
in
hit the
Epstein File.
circulation of like Keanu Reeves? I think it was like in 2018, and then there's been reports like he said it, he didn't say it, but there's a quote saying Keanu Reeves stated that he was at a well-known director's house, and that he was in the kitchen and opened up the fridge, and that there was a baby in the fridge, like that they literally ingest them like that, and it was like out in the open.
Well, that's just it. And so basically, they advertise cannibalism and essentially eating of human flesh and drinking of baby blood, which is interesting to me because many years ago I interviewed a guy named Stu Webb, and I can't say that I thought that he was reputable or not, but he was married into the George Bush family. And it's also interesting that Wisconsin's former governor Scott Walker is married or is of the Bush family, as in Herbert Walker Bush. That's the Walker, that's Scott Walker of the Republican Party in Wisconsin. And a lot of people don't know that they're related. But as you know, Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. were Bohemian Club members, Skull and Bones men. And Stu Webb said that George Bush Sr. and Jr. were part of something called the Council of 13, which was a elitist group of secret societies that partook in the old Babylonian mystery religion rituals of basically cannibalism and human sacrifice. And he claimed that on the equinox of fall of every year, that they go to this location, which I actually visited in person and took video of
Where
and
at?
validate. Yeah, we can get into that in a minute. But he claims that he go into this big Illuminati hotel, and then there's a tunnel that goes underneath to this old fraternity style home across the street where they murder a child, they drink the blood, and he claims that like Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, I think he said. I replayed the clip just recently on the show, and we did a follow-up interview with him, but he claimed that went on the equinox, and I thought he was nuts. And then he said, well, we got done with the show, and he said, I'm going to make a couple predictions. He said a week before the fall equinox, a child is going to go missing, or children will go missing because they sacrifice them to Molech or Baal, and they do drink their blood, and they do child sacrifices at that location. And I sure as shit, the weekend prior to the equinox, in the news, the cops had a gas station or a grocery store surrounded, and the person put a gun to their head before they shot themselves with a small child. They said that they were stealing the child for Illuminati ritual sacrifice. And that made the news. So he brought Stu back on to talk about his experience in the Bush family and his claims, which, by the way, a lot of them seemed really sensational. But all of a sudden, I'm seeing these Epstein files, and it's basically what Stu Webb was saying. And he used to write for Veterans Today. And people have different opinions on Stu. And I can't imagine being involved with a family like that. That would leave you normal. But I remember George Bush Sr.'s wife. Remember, she had the baby fetus in the pickle jar.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, she had a miscarriage, and she had them jarred in a pickle jar for her.
Oh, wow. The most powerful time for thousands of years, the Druids, the Mayans, the Egyptians, it used to be, October 31st, right when it goes in, when it strikes like 12:01 and becomes November 1st. But with the shifting and the way things are now, it now occurs November 21st, and it's when the Pleiades is the highest point in the sky. So it used to happen, Halloween, and now it happens November 21st. I found it really interesting that, November 22nd when JFK was assassinated?
Yeah, which is interesting because I spent a week with Judith Baker, Lee Harvey Oswald's former lover, and I spent a weekend roughly with St. John Hunt. That's Howard Hunt's kid, the former director of intelligence of the CIA. He's the one that said he was a bench warmer in the JFK assassination. And basically, from what I heard, it's interesting to me that their beliefs are that Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy. He was working for the CIA. that was going to come out in court. That's why Ruby shot him. Essentially, they believed that it was a law enforcement officer from the grassy knoll because no one would question a cop with a gun. And that was the conversation I had with them. But that's completely a side topic. Really interesting. I just wanted to sum it up. And St. John Hunt has his father on a deathbed giving a confessional that the CIA was essentially responsible for the JFK assassination. He said it was a matter of national security. So who knows what JFK was doing that they thought he was a matter of national security. But if George Bush Sr. didn't like him, who was sitting and was in Texas and was in that location the day of the assassination, and he ran the CIA shortly after, and he's the head of the Bohemian Club for a bunch of years. I think it's good to say that it's an interesting viewpoint to take what Stu Webb had to say. And could there be elitists doing real children sacrifice? I believe somebody is somewhere on this planet. It's going on, and it's a dark thought. But there's a lot of weird things. There's people who believe in ancient rites. There's ancient cults. You got these old Hermetic orders of Osiris and Egyptian. You got the Babylonian mystery religion, which is a lot of this child sacrifice. That's where we get the term cannibal from. It's Baal and as in Babylonian priest, and cannibal. That's because it comes from Babylon. In fact, the baseball field of a professional sports team is laid out with a square and compass, and every time you start the game, you say "play ball." So it's all there. It's all a ritual, and it's all occultic. And I found it interesting that Epstein had some ties and communication about secret societies, including the Bilderberg Group. He mentioned the Illuminati in video, saying that the Trilateral Committee was essentially the Illuminati, which we knew that due to, because of Myron C. Fagan in the 1960s, he put out a vinyl record series called the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, is Illuminati. And it's all the bloodlines that came from the 1700s that essentially formed that organization. The whole idea is communism, but now the modern day is called fully automated luxury communism, where robots will do everything. We can become flat pieces of slime sitting on our couches, collecting a universal basic income because we're too lazy to get off our ass and do anything.
There's certain substances that affect certain things too. Like there's reports of people that ingest like methamphetamine, and that it almost connects them to like this darker demonic network, where there's stories where a guy was on it, and he was instructed to go into this cornfield, and like very specifically, like tell like these whispers of this, telling him where to go, and he finds in a cornfield duffel bags of cocaine. And another guy, I think this was in Florida, and he was instructed he was on meth, and he was instructed to like go a couple streets over, like go up a block, go, one street over, fourth house on the left, blue house, in the safe. This is how you get in, and like knew the safe. So it's like there's certain substances that can connect you to this field or this darkness. And, if they're ingesting certain drugs that induce that, or is it organized, or is it a little bit of both? I believe that maybe that what you were speaking of earlier, when you ingest it, maybe you get direction or guidance like that, where it's this overwhelming, sensation of I have to do this, and or just where you, from what I understand, when you ingest what you spoke of earlier, it disconnects you from like source. You lose your creativity, and you start craving things like children, and discuss like you get like things that you would have never been willing or turned on by before. All of a sudden you have this insatiable appetite and want to do it. I can't hear you.
The whole idea of the adrenochrome conspiracy per se is exactly like you said. It makes them feel like they are youthful, superhuman power. And who knows, like you mentioned, everything might be sensational. It might be like doing ecstasy. I don't know. I've never really done any drugs intentionally other than, the devil's lettuce in the past. But like, well,
there's people that will do cocaine, and all of a sudden they'll want to watch their spouse, be intimate with someone. Like all of a sudden they're craving like extreme circumstances they wouldn't have been okay with, like not on it.
Yeah, like how does it impact your thought? Does it make you make good decisions or bad decisions? It's like alcohol, it's not for everyone. Some people break down and cry, some people fight, and some people's clothes don't stay on, and it's not good for everyone. And some people makes them have a social great night. It's drugs can be impactful, they can be beneficial if they're done responsibly, and I'm all for adults doing and putting into their body whatever they want. What are they seeing? What are we seeing? I've accidentally consumed DMT on one situation. I know I told you that in a conversation we had a couple days ago. And I saw kaleidoscoping Olmec pyramids with the Olmecs on top of it. And then I'm like, oh, I got to go to the Olmec pyramids. And then I saw how the world connects. And I think that there's a purpose for the mushrooms. Are they allowing us to tap in to the multiverse and the spiritual realm? Are we starting to see what the world is? Are we in a holographic world where everything's like computer based? Because that's how I kind of almost felt. Like everything is math, everything is sacred geometry, every action has a reaction, even someplace else in the world. One of your decisions might impact somebody else. It's just one of those things that a lot of people share when they do psychedelic drugs. And I think that there's a need for that or use for it now. But when we start talking about adrenochrome, and you're like, boy, it'd be nice to talk to somebody who got adrenochrome and used it. The problem is that they'd be basically, I think, an accessory to murder at that point, wouldn't they? That'd be like trying to buy a baby's arm or a skull
With all
or
this information and this Epstein stuff, it really just should, it just shows this is, we're in a spiritual battle and it's very real. And it honestly, because there's a lot of people like, what do I do with this info? Like it is spiritual. Look what's happening, and it should bring you closer to God, and knowing that, there's not just that island. Like this wasn't just one person. There's a lot in suburbia and the CP that goes on in your backyard, and, things with schools and it's much more common, and the more people know about this, the more they will be aware. And if you want to heal the world, it starts at home with yourself, and then those around you, and then your community. And if more people focus on, their households and their community and villages, like we could really make a difference with that, instead of like thinking we don't have a voice or can't do anything, or they're running the world and they're corrupt and we can't do anything about it.
Well, I think that's the main misunderstanding by a lot of people. So, especially in Christianity, it's prophesied that there's going to be antichrist. It's prophesied that there's going to be tribulation. So Christians become complacent. It's God prophesied and God ordained, so I'm going to just allow it to happen, and I'm going to be okay with it because that's what the Bible says. And so you got a bunch of Christians out there that are like, yeah, bring it on, end times. But at the end of the day, they're not really doing anything to prevent it from happening. And if Christians weren't supposed to do anything about bad people, we'd all be speaking German right now. And I think that it's a bad way for a lot of people to look at it, because Christianity, and I'm not talking about you or your viewpoint on it, but I think a lot of people out there are complacent in their religious beliefs. And I think it's important that we do put to action, like you mentioned, like going out and educating people and bringing awareness to these topics, because the topics that we're talking about, the people live in like a different multiverse, right? They've been abused a lot. They know of these substances because they've been around it, or they were in Hollywood, or they were in the music industry. Like I said, I did Vans Warped Tour for many years, and that, art bands and music world has its own issues, right? So the more we bring awareness to the predatory aspect of the wealthy rich and how they are getting away with things, like right now there's going to be no accountability for these Epstein files. I think
Right.
I think the more people that speak out, the more opportunity we have for accountability. And that's the biggest problem, is they can get away with it. If we don't pay our taxes, we go to jail.
Another thing is like some of their perspective, like a change in perspective, is some of these people that are, were like, God, they're so evil, like the Hillary Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein's. From what I've heard is that they actually have like, think of them as like devout Christians, like they're like this, like devoted to a religion that they feel called by God, because they believe that for this realm to be balanced, there must be X amount of evil, like X amount of bad and X amount of good to keep the realm balanced. So they feel called to be and chosen to deliver, like, okay, there needs to be this much evil. I will do it, God. And that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But, a change in perspective of like, wow,
Well, it's kind of also more Machiavellian, where they know if everyone's playing by the rules, they win by not.
And no one knows the rules. That's the thing, is a lot of them are more tuned into, and one thing I got to give to them, and I always say this like at conferences and stuff, where I'm like, look, dark side, like I got to give it to them. I tip my hat. You know why? Because they're organized. Like, and to combat this and this, for the system to collapse and rise from it, like unifying and not allowing the division and being organized, that would be beautiful. To combat that, it'd be much easier.
Yeah, I think that we can really come together, and we got to try to figure out ways of really separating ourselves from the left right paradigm, right? Because
Right.
at the end of the day, what you're talking about is that they want us to question the very fabric of how our reality works. Because what we've understood is a set of rules, and the rules that we live by, uh, we consider that to be moral. They don't live by those rules at all.
I go to LA Kings games a lot, and when I go there, I have this fantasy, okay, where I go in the arena. I'm like, God, I just wish I could like go up to the organ or the mic and grab it and like lead everyone in the arena on like a meditation of visualizing and combating certain things, because remote influencing is real, 100%. And when you get together with people, and our subconscious pilots our reality, and it's, at least 30,000 times more powerful than our conscious mind. And you get a bunch of us together and you direct that consciousness and meditate and send that out and really do it, like we could really change things. And so these narratives that are thrown at us, like even subliminally, of sigils, like there'll be sigils in certain things that are, like they're telling us things, and our conscious mind is not aware of this, but our subconscious mind gets it. And so that is like a game changer. So I really, just like a fantasy of mine of coming together and directing that and combating these dark agendas, because we could really change things. We're very powerful.
Well, that's just it. It's funny, even in Christianity, they say wherever two or more are gathered together, there also is the creator spirit, right? And that's basically what you're describing, is if you can get a group of people, an auditorium of people, a congregation of people, and you can meditate and raise vibration, essentially that's no different than prayer or meditation. It's all meditation at the end of the day. It's focusing. You're putting your thoughts into positive. You're coming together as a group and amplifying your strength, your vibrations, and your power. I believe very firmly that there's a very there's kind of a relationship between prayer and healing, because a lot of people have miraculous things happen to them because they pray. And I think it is exactly tied in with what you're saying. You're concentrating and bringing things into our reality. And that's the old Jewish claim of abracadabra. As I speak, I create, right? It's the symbolism. And what's interesting is if you put vibrations, let's say you play an instrument and you have a metal pan and you put sand on top of it, the vibrations of the sound will make symbols, because
Mm-hmm.
symbols are vibrations and vibrations are sound. And in the beginning, the creator spoke and created the heavens and the earth. There was vibration. Vibration is creation. And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
Each of our cells like emit a sound that like we can't hear with our ears, but it does. And it's so crazy that our light like emits biophotons. Like we're wonderful creatures. We just got to learn how to, direct that. Like, and we have so much knowledge inside of us, and accessing that with certain practices. That's what monks do, and fasting and meditating and discipline, like that. It unlocks things within us. And I believe that's what Jesus was teaching a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. What came to mind when you mentioned that is the movie "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker," where the guys walk around with his own theme music. And basically, what you're saying is we all have our own theme music, and some people are just a little loud, and others they don't have theme music at all. So, yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think that when we talk about our auras and bringing people together and how do we combat this symbolism is one of the ways that they really propagandize us. And what's interesting is I'm writing a book called The Magic Behind Words, which really unlocks the programming of your mind. I was a student of Jordan Maxwell, and as you know, we have a good friend in common, Johnny Enoch, another student of Jordan Maxwell. And every day, we type a pyramid and all-seeing eye on our computer. It's called a capital A. Most people don't even look at our alphabet. They don't look at the capital A and go, oh, that's a pyramid and all-seeing eye. We are programmed, and these symbols have been chosen because of epigenetic memories. And if you don't know what epigenetic memories are, that's the whole idea of the monarch butterfly, which is interesting because that ties in to child trafficking, the monarch program from the government, the trauma bonds, taking people who have bipolar disorders or split personality disorders and learning how to make Manchurian candidates who are basically adult film stars. And that's not even a joke. That's a real thing. MK Ultra Monarch program, and they would put monarch butterflies on the girls. The reason why they call it the Monarch program is because the monarch butterfly leaves Mexico and goes to Canada, but it's the fourth generation or fifth generation butterfly that actually makes it there. So how does it know the course? Well, it's all in their DNA. And that's what we're finding about with humans. I saw maybe 10 years ago articles saying that our DNA may hold all our ancestral memories up to the point of conception. And that's a very incredible thing because it ties in to something with this Epstein thing that we were talking about, because it's really crazy to me because I was talking back in 2015, I did a series on Truth Frequency Radio, which isn't around anymore, but it was the history of secret societies. And one of the main objectives of one of the occult secret societies was to find the phallus of Osiris or Nimrod, to take his DNA to be able to take his DNA and recreate him, either as a designer baby or get the consciousness and metadata from his DNA to know what his life and his thoughts were, so they could then implant it into another body. And then I was talking to you yesterday, and you brought up that very same topic
in 2003. Yeah.
Right. And then that was Gilgamesh.
Yeah. I said that like in 1 gram of DNA holds 455 exabytes of data, meaning like, we could store every book, every song, and still have space left over on just like a teaspoon of DNA, so we have this data inside of us. And so, in 2003, when they went into Iraq, they said that they wanted to get the tomb to get the DNA from Gilgamesh, and he was like super preserved. And that there's even an email that Hillary Clinton was inquiring about that as well. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. And even in the Epstein stuff, like there was a 2004 email where his circle was discussing funding an expedition to Cuba because a marine engineer claimed she found a symmetrical stone structure like 600 feet underwater that could be an ancient site and possibly be Cortez's lost treasure ship loaded with gold bricks. And this was being discussed with the VP of National Geographic, and they were trying to fund it. So this Paulina Zalitsky, she allegedly had an arrangement with the Cuban government and Cuban divers, and she was like, that's part of the things, like she was contacting Jeffrey to get funding for that whole project, where it's like pirates, right?
Right. And it's interesting. I love the idea of adventure and the Indiana Jones in me, the Jim Mars in me. But like, I really think that there's something going on with all these ancient structures. The elite have an interest in these mythological deities. And the idea that the Sumerians said that they lived for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands a year, the Emerald Tablet of Thought, that talks about the Fountain of Youth. That's where the legends of Fountain of Youth come from.
Elon Musk, his nanny, did you ever see that? His nanny said she was Elon Musk's nanny, and that when he was 6 years old, like he would go and play with these, like she just thought it was like invisible friends. And there was like these African I don't know, like almost ritualistic stones or something. And he laid him on his bed and he told her, I want you to meet my friends. And she talks about going in the room, and that when, they were laid out on the bed and in a circle, like formation, and that he grabbed her hand, and then it was like she fell into like an abyss, like a dark hole or something. And she saw these figurines with like that you see in hieroglyphs, where it was these beings with like different like animal heads. And she was like, oh my God, this whole she speaks of it, and I think you can find it. Like some places wiped it, but you can find her testimony. And it was very interesting because it makes me wonder, maybe they would gather at a place like Epstein Island during a solstice or particular transit or time of year, equinox, and ingest certain formulas, and maybe things appeared, who knows, like are aliens demons, like maybe things happen there that they saw that were like, wow. And then oh my God, like this thing can come out of a dimensional shift. Like I will do whatever I, have to, and like almost scared and, oh, you need me to sacrifice that, like probably terrified. I don't know. It's just theorizing.
Well, it's interesting. So the religion that most of these elite are interested in is what's called the Babylonian mystery religion. And it's one form of it or another. And the story goes that Noah had a grandson named Nimrod, and Nimrod was so upset that the world was destroyed in the great flood that he wanted the people to worship him. And so he told the people that it was through their own hard works that they too could become as if they are gods. And so he married his mother, whose name was Semiramis, and had incestuous relationships with her. He was the first king to wear a crown, and the crown represents the sun and his rays. He may be the first fire deity in history, and he created what was known as the old world order. And when people wouldn't worship him, he instilled cannibalism and child sacrifice. And through generations, he became deified as a sun deity. His brother Abraham, I think it was his brother Abraham, who cut him into 14 parts, just like the story of Osiris, sent his phallus back to Semiramis, who reanimated it and had an immaculate conception of Tammuz on December 25th. And that may be the story or the ideology or the origins of the story of Jesus Christ, at least as the Gnostics may have perverted it. So. And so that's the religion that they believe in. So it was said that Semiramis was the first moon goddess. There's other names for Semiramis. She's also known as Columbia, as in the District of Columbia. She also goes by is identified as an owl, but most often a rabbit, and Ishtar. That's where we get Easter from. And it was said that Ishtar fell from an egg from the sky into the Euphrates River and was saved by a dove. And she thanked the dove by turning it into a rabbit so it could multiply. And essentially, that was the story of Ishtar. But they all are that divine feminine Mother Earth type character, except Semiramis had incestuous relationship with her son. It was ritualistic sex magic for him to receive what they called the all-seeing eye. So it's very Aleister Crowley-ish. That's where he got the New Age movement, and a lot of these spiritual aspects of things, they all stem from this old mystery religion, which was all based off of symbolism and occultism. Now, you're hearing Knights Templar. I was watching this Knights Templar program the other day, and it had Timothy Hogan and Scott Walter on there. And I happen to know Scott because he's from Minneapolis, and I do a lot of ancient history here in Wisconsin dealing with giants. But Timothy Hogan's on there talking about how Yeshua, Jesus, was in a polygamous relationship with John the Baptist and had multiple kids with Mary Magdalene because rabbis had to have kids to pass on their bloodline, and that's the Grail secret. And that's Gnosticism. At the end of the day, he's trying to say it's all sun worship, and that was the perversion of Nimrod, because in the biblical sense, everything is like city on the hill, this little light of mine. It's all about illumination, right? So the idea of the Illuminati was really perverted throughout the ages to where it is now, and that's the occult, the rebirth of the mystery religion, the cannibalism, the eating of children, the adrenochrome. All those things are essentially what they claim to be. And it's funny, Fritz Springmeier in his book, I think The Bloodlines of the Illuminati, or it's the Illuminati Formula, he has a quote from the Rothschilds who say that they are the descendants of Nimrod.
That's what's so interesting about all this 23andMe and this latest Epstein drop is that it's almost like they're looking for someone or some specific people, you know, and he was given very, you know, he was a proponent of people taking this test. And I believe I'm soul technology, like that there's just like rules to this place that with souls. And it's almost like, I don't know, it has to do with DNA as well and destinations of where you can go and where you cannot. But yeah.
Well, let's see what the people in the chat have to say. Let's pull them up. We can put it on the screen. And if you guys want to talk to us or say something in the chat, we can go ahead and kind of mow through these. And it's pretty cool. We see that we got some comments here. And I want to say hello to Top Flight Security Craig. He says, hello, how are you guys doing? And he says, hi there, Kristan. There we go, Top Flight Security Craig. Yeah.
Craigs are fun. Have you ever met a Craig that isn't a lot of fun? I haven't.
I know a pretty sus Craig.
Really?
I used to bartend. Yeah. Craig is
maybe
like,
he's too much fun, which makes him sus.
He's predatory, Craig. And he's not straight either. So he's like that guy. He's like, I want to champion the straight man type guy. And it's like, brother, chill out. I'm not into dudes.
Oh,
you know?
by the way, let me tell your viewers, let me explain. There's a white owl. Like I go to different cities and there's a white owl that shows up in my reality a lot. So over the years, it's become like significant to me because, you know, it's just so rare. But then it became so common and I didn't know like a lot of people in my life when I would talk about it, like they didn't realize it. And then when it would happen, when it would show up, when I was with, you know, different people, how they were changed by it and felt something. So the white owl is not this darker symbolism or worship. It means something entirely different to me. And I just wanted to say that not all things mean certain symbols. We got to take our symbols back.
Yeah, right. They have different meanings to everything. Remember the rainbow being about Noah's Ark?
Right? Like how we need to take the rainbow back.
What are you suggesting, that God floods the world again? like where are we going with this? Be careful what you ask for, Julia.
We need to attach different joyful meanings with it.
Right. Well, you know what's interesting? I first became somewhat impacted by the library because I was old enough to get to meet my great-grandmother. Not everyone has what we call Uroma in German. German is a very brutal language. There's nothing that sounds sexy in German. It's like, was ist los mit du? Everything is like really like
aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive. It sounds like you could tell somebody that they look very beautiful and charming, and it just sounds like you said
angry.
Off with their head. Yeah, right. It's just one of those languages. But my great-grandmother, whenever there'd be thunderstorms, my grandparents would pull out lawn chairs in the garage, right? Because they didn't have TVs. They had radio, maybe, if they were lucky. And we're talking about people born in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so for entertainment, their parents would bring them out and they would just sit and watch a good thunderstorm. They'd be excited. They'd sit there, turn on the radio, and we'd watch the thunderstorms. So my great-grandmother afterwards, whenever she would see a rainbow, she'd break down and crying and start praying immediately for thankfulness because, as you know, the story of the first rainbow was after Noah's Ark, which makes a lot of people believe in the whole flat earth theory and the firmament not being there, and that's why all of a sudden there's rainbows and there was never rainbows before, and the first rainbow was on Noah's Ark. I don't know if that's the truth. You know, there's these legends. You read a lot of them, and nowhere in the Bible did say, I think, the first rainbow, but a rainbow appeared, and it was God's promise that he would never flood the world again. So I guess that going for the second flood might not be a good thing. Maybe we can do fire this time, Julia?
Oh, no. No.
Be careful what you wish for. Earthquakes, or something. But yeah, it's interesting because you're right. a lot of the symbols get commandeered, and the power of the symbol is how you what you do with it. It's like the old swastika used to be the sun symbol, right? And that used to be mean something else until Adolf Hitler ruined it. And then, you have these other symbols like the all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye pyramid is known as the chief cornerstone. And the reason why they call it the chief cornerstone is because there's an obelisk point at the end, and you can't put another brick on top of it, which is interesting because in the Bible it calls Christ the chief cornerstone. And what Masons do, if you have a cornerstone with a pyramid top on it, they cut it off and they reject it. The Pharisees rejected Christ. The Jesuits rejected Adam Weishaupt of the Bavarian Illuminati. That's why they became fond of that symbol, because it's rejection, but yet rising above and beyond and becoming deity form. And as you know, in the back of the dollar bill, they also have the all-seeing eye, which is the sun, right? The sun is the eye in the sky. I can't own the sun. You can't own the sun. That must be God's son. So that is the son of God, showing the Gnostic roots of the secret societies of sun worship and astrotheological aspects of the Christ or Christos or Yeshua ben Pantera, as the Vatican and the Jews believe who Christ really was, or his real name was. So that was a lot. Sorry. But yeah, symbolism, we got to take it back. I just wanted to talk about how symbolism is used differently.
I don't know how to type. Like on this, like it doesn't give me a place where I could respond.
Oh, yeah, sure. There should be a comments option and then be able to post down there. I don't know.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry, guys. I would have been typing, but
I don't know. I'll try to figure out a way. Maybe from your YouTube page you couldn't. Let's see if I can say hi, Dan. I don't know, Dan. Here you go, Dan. Let's see. Does this work? It's going to say the Rundown Live probably. Oh, there it is. Julia. Hi, Dan.
Yeah. Cool.
I said Dan's. So there's multiple Dans. Just so you know, you have two personalities, Dan. All right. We got Howdy Neighbors. We got Adman, the Lab Rat. What's going on, Adman? And we got Day 1S. He says, I've got a list of adrenochrome price and corporate buyers from 2020. 100 milligrams for $1,900. I don't know. I like to call bullshit, but I got no cards to play right now. So that's pretty interesting. Like, if somebody could get access or a list of this that wasn't made, that was genuine, I mean, I'd be interested in seeing that kind of evidence, right? Like, does it really exist? It's out there. We know that. Can I play a video? Mm-hmm. Are you okay with me playing a video? I have a video I put
mean,
together.
It might strike me, right?
No, this is this video will not strike you.
Okay.
Unless I strike you, because I played it earlier today, and it's a video I made. So I don't think you're getting it like striked at all for this. So let's see here. Let's see if I got it in the. Do we have it available to play? And we do not. Well, okay. Well, I apologize. I just don't got it available in this playlist of scenes right now. So, but I have a video of Fritz Springmeier talking about adrenochrome. And he's talking about it in the 1980s on the Prophecy Club. And it was interesting to me because this conspiracy, he used to say that bankers he knew would get like pamphlets that would have lists of like movies, like a Madonna doing a child sacrifice on an altar. It was one of the ones that he claimed that he saw. And he used to have a copy of it and he'd bring it around to show people. I think that I got it. I found it. Okay, we'll play it here, guys. All right, check this out.
What do I mean? He formed something called the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission is some spooky stuff. People said it was some of the people that the Illuminati.
There's also a very top secret, this substance, it's called adrenochrome, and just the very existence of it's been kept very secret by these people. If you time things just perfectly right, as the person is being sacrificed, you can stick a needle here at the base of the skull, and if you know what you're doing and the timing is correct, you can extract adrenochrome. which is a very valuable drug, natural drug, on the Illuminati's black market. The Illuminati's black market.
Anyways, that's kind of Fritz Springmeier. He gave like a 3-hour speech in the 80s, and he knew bankers, and he broke down what he called the Illuminati matrix, which was Rockefeller matrix. And he would do reverse hypnosis with OTO sex abuse victims, and they would break down and tell them how the programming worked, and he wrote a book on it, and it was called The Illuminati Formula. In fact, he wrote a book called The Bloodlines of the Illuminati that you can get for free if you just go to the FBI CIA database. It's there for free. They catalog it to understand mind control, and basically all the studies on MK Ultra came from satanic cults because of the epigenetic memories, right? Finding people who are already abused, you find their children, well, they're susceptible to abuse if their parents or grandparents were, because it's epigenetically been programmed into them.
So, Kristan, with this latest dive, which to me, it's like it was released, this last data dump, these files on January 31st. They added the 3, so you got the 13, and then it's 3 million files.
Woo!
And it's just no coincidence whatsoever that they didn't leave any perpetrator's name unredacted, but they did with a bunch of victims. And that's kind of showing like what this is, where this is going. And they added in a lot of, more recent hotline reports of people once they were hearing of this that were calling in saying all kinds of stuff. And from what I understand, like it's important to look at things before 2011, because when the money and the payouts and the lawsuits were happening, a lot of it increased like the amount of fictitious reports or whatever towards the end. But I think it's very important that we bring up the other people like Sarah Kellen, and that she was the executive assistant and she helped, and she was repeatedly named, and she was given like a non-prosecution deal when he got his like 2008 sweetheart deal. And why was someone that was accused by multiple victims of facilitating abuse like never charged? And then Rachel Chandler, the Nadia Marikova, Leslie Groff, like that there's other people that we could be, remembering and saying their names to not forget that. Like,
well, yeah, there's a lot of people. And like you mentioned, there's timelines and there's reports, but you have to keep also take into consideration the fact that during the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, a lot of girls might have been inspired to call in and give their side of the story.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I think that it's really hard to just so everyone's being social engineered to take a side right now. And this modern day and era, the pendulum has swung back from far wokeness and cancel culture to freedom of speech and it's cool to hate, right? You have Charlie Sykes getting shot. People were celebrating that. You had Renee Good and then Renee Good and Alex Pretty shot. It almost sounds like a MK Ultra situation with Pretty Good there. Look at that. Just take both their last names. It's Pretty Good. You look at that and you start looking at how the right celebrated that. People are being divided and they're putting away their common sense. They're willing to give up their liberties and freedoms and say it's okay for ICE to put American citizens on the ground at gunpoint while they search hotels in Chicago, or restraining American citizens unlawfully as they do background checks on them or whatever it might be. And then we're gonna do what they call awful but lawful shootings. And we're going to say that's okay. And we shouldn't stand up for any of that. We didn't stand up for it during the Bundy Ranch scenario. I didn't stand up for it during George Floyd. I didn't stand up for it during the Jacob Blake situation, although I understand what came out of that and the intentions there, and I didn't stand for it in Kenosha. Like, it's one of those things where law enforcement doesn't make good decisions. And I think that we should talk about that because people are being engineered to be, here would be the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears. If you're a Bears fan, we naturally are inclined to hate you. Even if our team is 4-12, we are still better than the Chicago Bears. And that's how the right wing is playing it. I think Donald Trump is trolling the left by calling them domestic terrorists because all of January 6th, they were domestic terrorists. Now, we should really bring into this conversation the fact that Jeffrey Epstein may have been part of the creation of the forum that spawned QAnon. So you have right wing being completely culturized by QAnon, child trafficking, all these movies. What was the movie called that they had that everyone was showing everyone? It was like the Coming to Q movie documentary. And basically, it's like 500,000 sealed indictments, which was bullshit. All that JFK is sitting on Mount Rushmore in a secret base or whatever. They had a whole bunch of crazy stuff under the QAnon stuff, but it tied symbolism, maybe some real life style incidents that were really happening on Epstein Island. And they made it so that it was so exposed and so ludicrous that people went and they raided the Capitol on January 6th because they thought that they were saving the children, right? And here was Jeffrey Epstein running a psyop for you, a honeypot to identify extremists and get them to commit a crime so big that no one would ever question another child trafficking ring if they saw it, because of the fact that this kind of thing obviously doesn't happen. Look at these crazy right-wingers on January 6th. So January 6th, it could be very easily said that Jeffrey Epstein and his cohorts social engineered the right wing to right into the Capitol. And who's to say that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein still aren't friends and he literally helped them get it reelected or get
we look at prison as like a horrible place, right? Like no one wants to go to prison. Yet in prison with some of the, darkest people, you got all kinds of people in there, right? And they've all made mistakes. But one thing they all get behind, and that's you do not rape a kid, you do not molest, you do not strict. There is no crossing that line, period. You do not do that. And here on the outside, they want it to be accepted. They want it slowly seeping out and it's like something we're born with. It's like, it's another sexual orientation. Like you have, what do they call that? I'm pansexual. I'm, this sexual, that sexual, whatever. And they want it to be accepted as like demisexuality or bisexuality. Like, oh, I'm into kid. And we're not okay with that. We will never be okay with that. Just like the prisons, you just don't do that. And there's a reason why they get killed in prison, because it's like law. And we all feel that way. And we need, and that's what can unify us, is that's what, no matter what side you're on or whatever, you want to help and save children. You want to protect them.
You don't mess with the children. And that's what Epstein did. And then he tried to make it so that anyone that ever questioned such behavior of him in the future or anyone else, it would just get thrown out because it was just a QAnon Pizzagate conspiracy. And that was the whole psychological psyop there, is so that he could continue running his trade without question, because anyone that would call in anything of the sort of buckets of blood or adrenochrome or eating children or child sacrifice or, prostitution of small children, young as, what was that? They had one that it might have been a typo, but it looked like 9 years old, a Brazilian that they called a sexy 9-year-old. Like, I want to puke right now. That's fucking gross. Like just the idea of the way he communicated, he was a predator of children. But what's crazy is that the Rockefellers had to know this. Other people had to know this. It came out that he was in Israel. He's working with Israel. He probably worked with Russia. He probably worked with everybody. He was probably an agent that just was trying to make money, got extortion information, sold it. But he has definitely had Mossad links with Ghislaine Maxwell and her father and Isabel Maxwell and everything else that was going on. At one point, Isabel's father said he could probably own the government because he had trash on everybody. And that's what they ran, is a extortion operation. And they're not the only one. Look at P. Diddy. You think that's the only one? Look at what was going on in Hollywood with Weinstein. There's cells of these all over the United States. It's normalized. And I think that the problem is it could be so bad potentially that we wouldn't know what to do with it if everyone came forward. Because we're talking about thousands of girls just at Epstein's Island. And it sounded like a lot of these girls, like there was one girl talking about Marilyn Manson visiting her when she was 10 or 11, and trying to get her to do things. And then she was at a party where Epstein was at, and they tried to get her at an underage, try to sleep with Eminem. And then they made her take something. They forced a pill down her throat, shaved her private parts, and they brought out a bed to the center banquet hall. And then when she woke up, she was naked and she didn't know what happened. That's a real report. And that's just what, but the thing is, there's so many of these reports that are like that. And and it's not always just Donald Trump, it's Epstein. And I want to point out that Donald Trump was ballsy enough not to have his name really redacted. He either is confident that people will think he's innocent, or he's so thug where he's going to say, what the fuck are you going to do about it, per se. That's the attitude he has. He's the president. Here it is. This is what it says.
Oh, I don't think this is all of it, though. I think this was I believe it was totally strategic of what was, I feel like it's like a joke of the information that was released compared to the things that could really unravel things and expose things. And wasn't a bunch of them wiped out? Trump 7 million or something, wiped out?
You're talking about articles?
Yeah, of the files, a bunch of the files.
Showing right now on the screen, I'm showing a file that was deleted, and it's a very consistent story of people going to country clubs when they're between 12 and 17, either working there or being there and being abused by, Robin Leach or the Sinaloa cartel or Epstein or Bill Clinton. Donald Trump gets named multiple times that he's at these things. There's been a couple claims of him being at orgies, participating. This one girl said she participated in orgies with these individuals. And again, like you said, these are allegations. If it came down to court, none of these people would have the money or power to fight, I think, Donald Trump, or have the evidence to prove it.
What me and my girlfriend were talking about the other night? We were like, dude, that we should have a nonprofit or a charity where it's a bunch of ex-military or just jujitsu or boxers or ex-football players or just beefy masculine men that are, and call it alpha angels. And if a girl's getting beaten, or if she's being trafficked, or you can call this hotline and I need help moving my things, or and you have these people these alpha males that show up and are able to do something about it. Because back in the day, in ancient times, you had villages, right? And you had tribes, and you had these communities, these tight-knit communities. And when a male stepped out of line, or someone stepped out of line, especially the male, and they were trying to sleep with people's wives or commit crimes or steal, whatever it was, they would take him out by a fire as men, all of them together. They would beat his ass and then let him cry it out. And as men, they gathered together and was like, no. And that's the kind of thing we need to bring back, of where we do that and practice that, because thinking, the police force corrupt. There's so much corruption, and they embed. And then when anything becomes successful, say we do have alpha angels and these alpha males that do that, an organization, obviously that will get infiltrated. Everything gets infiltrated, but hopefully it wouldn't. But I just think solutions like that is at the point we're at. We need to start creating things with solutions. We need to start creating solutions.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure. Somebody said Rothschild means red child. I thought it meant red shield. I could be wrong in my German translation, but I know that they used to have a different last name, and they changed their last name to Rothschild because they'd have red shields with a seal of Solomon on it, which is a hexagram, right? What does it mean to cast a hex or paint a hex in the ground? It's to cast a spell, and they were occultists, and that's, like I said, believed that they were the offspring or ancestors of Nimrod, according to people that have had reverse hypnosis, and according to Rothschild's writings himself. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure. But yeah, man, I think that your solution is interesting. Did you see the email to Mark Epstein?
The brother, about which one?
The one where he gets threatened by Epstein's boss, and they call him Pudgy.
Oh yeah, and they said I want to see one of your kids murdered, right? Like
Right. And you know who he is? What's his name? Say his name. They want him to say his name so say he knows him so he can kill him. He's like, my boss, Epstein's boss, loved him. I loved your brother, but he wanted him to take over the business. It sounded like.
And he called him by his nickname. That's what was kind of confusing, right?
Yeah, Pudgy. They knew him. Whoever it was knew him. And it was like the email was like killpudgy@fastmail.com.
Oh
so
my God.
like it's could that have been Epstein? Could that have been Epstein's boss? I don't know. Who would be Epstein's boss? Could it be George Bush? Who is it? He ran the CIA. They run all the cults. Who runs all the cults? Who's in part of the Council of 13? Kissinger's gone. Zbigniew Brzezinski's gone. David Rockefeller's gone. We have a new oligarchy. Like we have new groups of people in there, and the old oligarchy's dying fast. And I think that the solutions that you mentioned with the surveillance state and them having the ability to track us and follow us, and there is no privacy anymore. We've built a surveillance state where they can find you almost anywhere you're at unless you move out of the United States. And that's a sad thing, unless you find, Montana, or you find an Amish community, which I bet you that there's a lot of these MK Ultra programs that live in Amish communities because no one will look for them there. So it's interesting. So we got some other comments in the chat here that are coming up. Wanted to go give a shout out. We got Mike Does in the chat. How you doing, Mike? We got Adam Man again. We got Astrolab, which is a pretty cool name, Astrolab. What is it? It says competitive self-determination is thought to be moral. That's the one that will be the hardest to break.
Yeah. It seems like we battle something here. Like, just think about how much negative thoughts we think about ourselves every day. Like, I'm like, are they emitting from the moon, or from, are they spirits? Like, what? Of just thinking loving thoughts about yourself every single day is like, you got to work at it. You got to be disciplined.
Well, okay. So you mentioned something really important. It's really important in our lives that we identify these things and we call the bullshit out by its name, but we take power over these demons, per se, these evil people. And it's interesting. I start my day every day with prayer.
Being grateful, listing. I wake up every day and I say what I'm grateful for out loud. There's more power in saying things out loud. Prayer, all of that. It's so important. And speaking it over water, programming our water. That I love that information. Like Vita Austin, Emoto proved it. Water is programmable, and Vita Austin really showed it, that water has memory. And Luc Montagnier showed that the experiments of DNA spontaneously emitting in water.
Water has memory?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you explain this to me? I'm interested. I've never heard this.
Oh my gosh, yeah, water. And so Vita Austin. Okay, Luc Montagnier. He was a Nobel Prize winner. He showed that he did these experiments that showed DNA spontaneously emitting in water and water memory. And Vita Austin, so you have Dr. Emoto, right? That shows the experiment of the water crystallography, where you speak to water, and when you said loving thoughts, it turns into these beautiful, he captured them, and it shows these beautiful crystalline structures. And so, it's just like with the rice of you say these I love you and kind words and frequencies, and you charge it, and they're beautiful. They look like just beautiful crystals. And when you say negative things, I hate you, and negative comments, it, how the rice will go bad sooner, and the crystals look horrible. Like, they don't look beautiful. And so Vita Austin, what she did was she took that experiment to a whole nother level, and her work is beautiful. And she would take in a petri dish water, and she did different things with it. So one of the things she started doing was she held up like a wedding invitation to the water and then froze it. And then she'd photograph it after, once it was frozen. And so then it showed like a ring. She's like, is this like a wedding ring? like the water's like corresponding. Then she showed a picture of of her daughter's French braid. And then it was, she froze it and there was a braid in the water. And Vita Austin's mother passed away, and she spoke to it and like asked a question about her mom, or like, Mom, I love you. Like she said something and she froze the water. And when she saw the water, it was VA, and where the A is like attached to the V in all caps. And it was the way she would sign her name. And she's like, oh my God. And so she's done all these experiments, and it shows like water has memory. Now, our cerebral spinal fluid is one molecule different than seawater. And there's a sacred process that happens where a chrism, it goes up our 33 vertebrae and goes into our hypothalamus and creates the DMT, like through our pituitary, and we have these insights. That's why, like every month when the moon enters your sun sign. So I'm a Libra. So when the moon goes into Libra, this process begins, and you're not supposed to have sex, have alcohol, overindulge in food. And the prayer, you're supposed to get really disciplined because of this sacred process of this happening, and the insights you get, and the prayer, and just having honor with that. So we're like 76% water, and there's a forgotten process of praying to water and soaking in these waters. Like Jerry Pollack, he talks about easy water. Victor Schauberger, of him realizing like when you vortex water into natural springs, it creates this fantastic water, that is divine. And so, and now they're putting fluoride in our water. And so of going back, I preach to go back to the ways of praying over our water and realizing how sacred it is. And when we ingest that, and having the right minerals and nutrients in our water, and how important that is, and getting certain filtration systems to get some of these microorganisms and viruses and pharmaceuticals and fluoride that's in our water, because it would make like a huge difference.
That's interesting. That's right up there with my idea I had when you were talking, and I had this epiphany. And you're like, human DNA can hold so much information. Maybe we don't need data centers anymore. People can just rent out their bodies as human data centers, and we can collect all the metadata for Microsoft and Google and Facebook there.
And maybe that's that could be. Are we implanted here to do that? Like
what? We'll have clone factories. That we're going back to the Matrix again. We're gonna have a computer system sucking on the life and storing all the data.
I always try to correct people. Like I'll take like extreme catchy ways, but I'll be like, dude, stop saying the Matrix. Like we're in the creatrix. Like what are you creating? Because we're little creator gods, right? And we could be creating so much. And so not acting like we're stuck in some kind of system. Like, dude, we could create our way out of it. Like, what are you creating? What are you creating? And shifting into that, like creator, creatrix, plugging into the creatrix and creating that.
Well, it's an information war, right? You're taking the data and you're creating something wonderful with it. And I think that's something we should really inspire a lot of people to do in your daily life. And not everyone's able to have a difficult conversation about geopolitical analytics and the global elite. Some people are just trying to figure out like if they want to eat GMOs or not. We're all at different levels, right? And trying to get somebody to a higher vibration, it's not something that we can do, but they got to be able to choose it. But we can show them through our own good work and who we are, being relentless. I put myself, like you mentioned, in a lot of not positive situations, and I don't feel unpositive about them. I feel safe. I feel protected, even though I'm in violence, urban war zones often. I bring that idea out when I try to unprogram all these kids. When I tell them, if you're easy to angry, you're easy to manipulate. And that's exactly what we're seeing with these Epstein files. People are getting angry on the right, and people are angry on the left about Renee Good and Alex Pretty. So you have anger, so people are easy to manipulate, and you want to remove yourselves from those paths and take a break from it and really just breathe and realize that it's not a sport. This is your life. It's not a game. It's reality. And you can make that reality by making those changes in your life. And discipline discipline is a very hard thing, but we got to be disciplined as individuals because that's that's a big thing and a big foundation to morality.
I like to apply that too of like the spiritual battle begins in the gut. Like you have and that's where a lot of mental issues happen, like where a mental illness will happen because it stems from the gut. And when the gut is in dysbiosis, there's the bad bacteria is way outweighing the good bacteria. And it gets into dysbiosis and it creates mental issues. And so treating your gut and your eating practice of like, that's why it's so important of like, because there's parasites in foods and a lot of people stop cleansing. And I speak about this a lot and I'm very passionate about it because they removed it. Parasites are the cause of most diseases and it's at the root of it. And they removed in the 70s, the parasitology and fungal pathology out of the med schools. And so a lot of these doctors, like they were like, oh, well, that's a third world country thing. You don't need to do that. Like you don't need to learn that. And so they're clueless about it. And then, the petroleum pharmaceuticals started well before that, and then where these people are sick, but they're not cleansing. And these equinoxes and some of these religious holidays were supposed to be to cleanse. You're supposed to do it twice a year. And we've forgotten that. And in the 30s, it really started dying out. And then you got in the 70s, they took it out of the med schools. And so now people are walking around, they're having all these issues and at the root of it, if they just started cleansing and eating a certain way, a lot of suffering would be gone and we would be in a better position of strength.
Yeah, I used to play in a punk band with a guy named Kurt who lived on a farm, and he used to just put ivermectin right on a cracker and eat it.
That's awesome.
Like it's a saltine, and he'd just be popping it, just eating the ivermectin. And he lived on a farm and they had horses. So
a lot of people and they, the horses, the cats, the dogs, and to think like, oh, the
beet
humans
juice.
don't need it. It's like, dude, we kind of do.
Well, beet juice is a little secret that not too many people know. Not only does it lower your blood pressure, but it also paralyzes any kind of parasites in your body. So it really makes it easy for medication to work or for you to flush them out of your system.
And it's really good for the liver and it helps you glow.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
beet juice. Heck yeah.
I've been drinking a lot of beet juice. Maybe that's
no
why
wonder
I'm
you're
glowing.
glowing. You're glowing, baby.
I beat the juice. That's it.
Well,
Beet
thank you,
juice.
Kristan, dude. This is amazing. But like out of all, I just want to ask you, like out of all, because you went deep, like you were so deep. You went on a deep dive with these files. And
My
I
heart
know
hurts.
it's a lot. It is a lot. I mean, I went down so many rabbit holes last night and I'm like, oh man, like I just want to pray and like, I don't know, I want to go do some boxing or something to like get out this energy. Like, cause it's like you're absorbing it. And they did make it very difficult to where you got to comb through it. And it's not easy how they did that. It's so time consuming. It's like designed so you just give up or you just take another narrative. But like out of everything you discovered since Friday, like what do you think like the 3 key things or that were just astounding to you? Because the telomere thing was very interesting to me too.
I would say that a couple of things that really stuck out to me, and we'll go with some things that are like email orientated and some things that are attachment orientated. Epstein had an attachment that educated him on all the bloodlines of the Illuminati and every or every person in the Council on Foreign Relations Trilateral Commission and names of individuals and which organizations which were affiliated with the secret society known as the Illuminati. That's a real, and what's crazy is my buddy Leo Zagami, he's Italian. I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
Where like if you talk to an Italian, they could be angry at you and it sounds happy. He's like Leo Zagami, and it's like he can tell you the world's ending and you're still smiling on your face because he just seems so damn happy like Mario.
Dude, as an Italian, I endorse this message. As an Italian myself,
I endorse this message.
Hey, I
bring me out
co-sign.
the pasta, hey. But the Leo, who used to be he's a born-again Christian now, but he used to be the head of the OTO Satanist and the modern day, what you would call Illuminati, which is a MK Ultra cult. His name was in there as a credible person to understand global government. And this is a document that Epstein had. And the question is why. Do these secret societies exist? I looked up secret societies, and there was a bunch of stuff in there. Somebody also mentioned that excuse me, wow, that's a verbal disaster. Quantum computing is more effective than Illuminati magic. That was in an email by to Jeffrey Epstein. So quantum computing has a lot of power. That's something in the future we could talk about: quantum entanglement, multiverses, jumping parallel realities, building your own realities, and it just kind of shows you that we might be in a simulation after all. I think it's really interesting, and it's also very important to understand that these are all allegations. And
Wait, one thing I want to say about the quantum computer, because Geordie Rose, he had the first quantum computer company, and he spoke about how the D-Wave quantum computer is used to open portals to communicate with other entities or forces, and they don't necessarily want us bothering them. And so he had the first quantum computer company, which sells its computer to like Google, NASA, Lockheed Martin. And he was literally telling us they tap into parallel universes and do computations. And what he said was these things we are summoning into the world now are not demons, not evil, but more like Lovecraftian great old ones. They are entities not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So, and he went and said like that this is happening in the background while people bicker about politics. Underneath it all is this rising tsunami that if we're not careful is going to wipe us all out. And that's something of where we're headed and what we're discussing here and this and that is like so important. But another thing I wanted to add of what you were speaking of was, Les Wexner, the one that funded Jeffrey and gave him like the keys of the kingdom, kind
Victoria's
of.
Secret, right?
Right.
And he also did The Limited.
And he speaks of, in an interview, he talks about his Dybbuk, like this demon that basically came into his life, and then he didn't see him for a while, and that he came back into his life and was like, I'm going to teach you how to make your first billion, and made him a billionaire and didn't see him, and like came like, but that what he says about this, like, wow, this is a real spiritual war. Like, we need to get educated and like how to combat these things.
Well, it's interesting. When you were talking about quantum computing, it sounds like something in the 80s they used to call the Ouija board. And it seemed like they had a very similar type of communications people claim to have with Ouija boards and talking boards and scrying, right? Remember the black mirrors?
I say that the circuit boards and demonic sigils, like they look really similar. And so when you look at the lesser keys of Solomon, like if you look at Goetia, like it's like, was this some kind of technology? Like, did King Solomon, because they spoke of like he made things levitate and he had this ring. Is this just, an Atlantis type, just advanced civilization with this tech that's how he got the demons to do things for him? Like, that's why I'm most interested in these emails, because there's a reason why Epstein wanted brilliant minds, physicists, like, and people tapping into the quantum realm, like all of that, like for a reason.
Well, I agree. I think that he had interest in those things, including the paranormal. But we also know that he would be communicating with a lot of people about many different things, including health initiatives and earth initiatives and cryptocurrency. The rumors are that he is one of the main people behind Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin is crashing. That's the ghost in the closet. A lot of people believe that he was one of the founding investors there, which would be very crazy and scary. But, and another thing that we forget about is scrying mirrors. That was a big way that, like,
Edward Teller, and yeah.
We got scrying mirrors right here. We got to take them everywhere we go. We call them cell phones, right?
The quartz crystal, like we're dependent. Like quartz crystal is in every. We're dependent on a technology that all has a quartz crystal inside.
Well, right. And so I guess my big takeaways from all this is, first of all, I want to say that you shouldn't. First of all, reading the Epstein files is not for the faint of heart, because there's so much and so many allegations. And a lot of them, there's not synchronicity, but there's a pattern. And pattern means that it's not synchronicity, it's not coincidence, that either there's an organized effort to report these, or that there is something more going on. But the thing is we're not going to be able to prove it. We're going to read these. It's going to expose it. The real thing is it's the Illuminati magic ritual of letting us all know what's going on. So we
They
just
have to
accept
tell
it.
you. They have to
Right.
tell you. They do. They to evade the karmic law, the universal law of this place. You got to tell them.
And
you
they're
know?
telling us right now what they're doing in secret in these Epstein files, and it's just going to carry on. They're going to be like, you guys knew it happened, just not everyone's in it. We just live in a different metaverse where we didn't have to eat human tissues and all that stuff. No, it's just...
By the way, I said Edward Teller, but I meant Edward Kelly.
Edward Kelly. Good correction. It's always good to correct it. Somebody said a Ouija board seemed to go back 12,000 years. That could be very true. That I know talking boards were really big. I come from gypsy bloodline on my mom's side, Bohemian, Ukrainian, German. And, the talking board is something that they can trace back at least, I think, 1,200 years. And it might be 12,000 years, like you mentioned. I just don't know how we'd prove that. We don't know how old things are. All we know is that the world once was in a very different state. We know that we don't really adhere to these ancient rituals. Most of us, although that we are propagandized by all the symbolism. And I think the big thing is we got to start taking everything back. We need to start doing what you're saying. Either get into prayer, find people to pray with, go back to church, find your creator, whatever that is. I'm not saying that you have to believe what I believe, but believing and being a good moral person to other people and not taking advantage and abusing people, honoring your contracts, and finding that inner strength to really accomplish your goals. And if you're not goal setting, I would say that's the first thing you need to do. And because if you don't set goals, you're setting yourself up to fail. Like Robbie Carwells used to say, I've had him on the show. He's a former Savannah manager of their football team. And he used to say, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. And so you got to have a plan, and you got to stick to the plan. You got to set your standards, and you got to find out a way to make up any goals that you're not hitting. So you got to show improvement. Otherwise, we're just surviving and we are just feeding the system. So get out of the system mentally. Read the books they don't want you to read. Listen to people they don't want you to talk to, and find out what's true and decide what's true for yourself. Don't let some talking heads on TV tell you what's true. Don't let Kristan T. Harris or Julia here tell you what to do. Do your own research. And if you have questions, ask your elders, ask the people who've been through it. And I gotta say, at the end of the day, the truth is we don't know. We know that we had Larry St. Clair during the Obama administration, and the kids that died in the church at Obama's church that were, some people claimed that they were murdered. We had the Clinton era. We had the Bushes, the 9/11, and it's always been something is what I'm getting at. You can't allow it to let you down. You need to educate yourself, educate the youth, and be a beacon for truth, because more documents are going to come out, and we're going to find even more bizarre things. And the issue is that we're not going after these elite that are in these lists. In fact, we're protecting them. We're blacking out their names, but not Donald Trump. So Donald Trump obviously doesn't feel like he cares, or that's his, Illuminati ritual per se, letting us all know what's really going on. Or he's a changed man, like King Solomon. Remember, King Solomon was the most evil black wizard ever around. He believed in ritualistic sex magic that all stemmed from Babylon. It was the mystery religion all over again. And then he confessed and became one of the wisest men in history when he came back to God, because he learned of the mistakes he made. And keep in mind, he had a little orgy temple and factory. And in fact, every Masonic lodge out there is laid out like King Solomon's temple, which is a reproductive female organ, because it's divine feminism and masculine and sex rituals. So that's why Catholic priests go to seminary. Yeah, seminary. So most people don't know that. That being said, Julia, thanks for having me on. And we got to do more of these. We got to get some more deep cuts in. So if you guys like the broadcast with me and Julia today, leave some comments in the chat. And I have to say thank you for Julia to asking me to do this. I know that it's a good time. We're getting viral all over the internet, over almost 2 million views in the last 36 hours. That's just my Facebook page. Like, you would think that there'd be cooler things to look at than my Facebook page, but there's a lot of stuff on there. So.
You do have a website? Like, where can...
Yeah, you guys can find me at...
best spot?
Yeah, sure. So we can go ahead. My website is a little outdated. I paid someone to do my website, $1,500, but they stiffed me. They literally did not follow through. and the person has children, and I'm pretty sure they can't afford to pay me back. So either I can take them to court, which I don't believe is a Christian in suing people. I guess I got to forgive them and just learn from my mistake. But here we are. We're going to put on the screen my website. It's called therundownlive.com. We've been the Resistance since 2008. We've brought in over 1,000 episodes of podcasts from everyone from Santos Bonacci, Jordan Maxwell we've had on the program. We've had Doc Marquis, Fritz Springmeier, all the old greats. We've had a lot of newer people on talking about transhumanism. Zoltan Istvan. We've had people from Contact in the Desert. Hugh Newman's been on the broadcast. We've had so many people on about ancient history. You can find us. The best thing to do is go to Spotify or Ground Zero Plus. Every day, my show airs at noon Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. California time. For all your fans out there that are following you, they can listen to us on groundzeroplus.com. There's just a little play button and the radio plays. And we are syndicated on KGRA as well, but therundownlive.com, or you can find me rumble.com/therundownlive, or Kristan, Kristan T Harris, like what you guys see on the screen. Feel free to email me, show tips at the Rundown Live, and I would love to talk to anyone out there about these things. And I'm not even, open to hearing what other people believe and other people's versions of everything. Eastern Standard Time, we are looking at 1 p.m. We are live daily on Ground Zero Plus, and I can put that in the chat for you. Ground Zero
and
Plus
thank
is
you
free.
thank you for the tea. But I messed up your tea. I made it. He told me about this tea last night. He's like, it is amazing. Like,
okay.
And so I made it. I got all this up today and made it. But not only did I do the serrano pepper, but I also added cayenne pepper. And oh my God, like that's why I keep coughing, because like the back of my throat. Oh my God, I have way too much cayenne.
So essentially, there's this awesome tea you can make, and it helps you slim out and burn calories and speeds up your metabolism. And essentially, the safe, like, so there's two versions, both of them work. One is without the pepper, right? That's going to be the mint leaf. You're going to have lemon balm tea, green tea, and then you're going to have real ginger sliced, 1 inch per cup. And then you're going to add a little bit of pepper in there. I infused water. So I did a giant pot, and I put in 6 lemons worth of juice. And then I put in 4 inches of chopped up ginger. And then obviously I quadrupled my green and lemon balm tea, and I added organic raw honey, and it works great. I'm sorry. Yeah. If you put too much pepper in there, you're going to be, you're going to be running.
Dude, the back
You're like dying in the middle of the show. You're like, this Illuminati.
It was Illuminati. It was a naughty Julia to put that much cayenne. And
Why
the
would
thing
you
is,
put so much in there? I guess
the thing is cayenne has like literally saved people's life. Like people that had heart attacks, like you put it under the tongue. Like it's done so many amazing things, and it's so good for the heart and circulation, that I remember stuff like that. And when I'm putting it in, I'm like, a little more cayenne. It's great for the heart. I just took it too far. I do that.
But you only made a cup of it, right? So you can.
No, I made like a big thing. So I probably need to add more water to dilute it.
Yep.
Right.
That's what you're going to have to do. Yep.
Okay.
And it's going to be good. Otherwise, it probably tasted good, I bet.
Other than the cayenne, dude, I wonder how long this is going to last. Like,
well, take the cayenne out. I just make another batch. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
No problem. Thank you too. And we'll talk soon.